Hello, we are back with another episode of Roll Pod. We're recording this on Friday, August 14th, the morning of Friday, August 14th, coming off Alabama's first fall scrimmage that took place in Bryant-Denny Stadium on Thursday morning, afternoonish. Heard from Kalen DeBoer. After that, we have a bunch of intel that we'll get into that we have posted on the board as well. You can get all that for 60% off annual VIP. We're running a promo right now over the next couple of weeks, and I think we have another promo when September hits for the college football season. Then we'll probably have another promo. It seems like we always have a promo. We'll have Alex and Mike kind of dive into the scrimmage. I'll have some thoughts as well. But first, I think the biggest storyline is A.K. Deer from an injury standpoint. Alex, Mike, I should have maybe teed it up a little bit better than that.
Injuries as a whole. I did not expect to be writing multiple injury updates. I blame you, Brett, because it wasn't that long ago, saying the big takeaway was health, and I wanted to throw my computer across the media room. Losing Deer is tough. Like, it's not a guy who we went into camp thinking like they're going to be depending on him. But he'd obviously made progress. He grew up say multiple really good things about him in terms of just the light coming on with maturity. And that was always sort of the thing is, you know, are you doing what you need to do on a consistent basis? Do you understand protections, all of those things? And it seemed like he really turned a corner there and put him in a position, I think, to make some headway. You know, how long is he out? We'll have to wait and see. I don't think EJ Crowell being out is a good thing. I mean, we talked about how important it was for him to get to campus early and missing out on the spring, and it's just more time out. And it's like at a certain point, you got to be available to make that progress, to be a guy who can make an impact. So the Latsier Brooks thing doesn't, from what I hear, doesn't really worry me too much. Maybe it gives those other guys competing for wide receiver 3 reps, more reps. So Derek Meadows, who had a good scrimmage, make some headway there. Sadarian Morgan, Rico Scott. Injury bugs happen. They hit. You just hope that none of these are long-lasting issues for Alabama.
I think you named all of them at receiver, which is kind of the story because it's a thin group in terms of experienced players. Even guys like Morgan hasn't played a college game yet. Meadows and Brooks have only played one season. You know, it's a pretty young and experienced receiver room.
Do you want to say it? Do you want to say his name?
Who?
Your guy. Is he going to start getting?
I was going to get there, but I thought you were going to say Ryan Coleman Williams. They have him. They have the talent at the top. It's more the depth that would concern me. And you already lose Noah Rogers for a certain period of time. We'll have to see still, when exactly he gets back, but it doesn't seem like it's imminent. And so it's not as much losing Brooks right now. Like you said, it doesn't seem like it's a big deal, but it's like, what's the next one? What's the next little injury? What's the next, what's the receiver room going to look like 3 or 4 weeks into the season if a guy here or there is banged up? So it's a room where I think it's, it's depth is probably the bigger question than talent. And maybe there is an opportunity for a guy like Tyler Henderson or MJ Bergwin to play some snaps early.
You got a new guy now? Is MJ your new guy?
Well, Chergwin, he's been around for a while. Yeah. He's caught a touchdown at Alabama. He was a walk-on. He's now a scholarship player, number 23. And so you might need some of those guys to play some snaps here or there. I don't think it would be a large number, but if you're down to 4 or 5 guys in that room, then, it's a little bit thin. So what was I going to say? Oh, about the running backs. Yeah, it's hard to say without knowing the severity of Deer's injury, and that hasn't come out yet as far as, Friday morning here. But I will buy into what Ryan Grubb was saying, and I think we'll get into that later as far as where he's come so far. Grubb think is a pretty straight shooter, and he didn't say much about Deere in the spring when he was asked about him, and he definitely said more this time. So, he's kind of earned the right to be talked about, if you will. And look, I think let's say you can't rely on EJ Crowell, but like you got to practice to play. Like you got to be able to practice a little bit here. And he hasn't really practiced in the spring. He's missing practice time in the fall. Is he magically just going to be ready to play an SEC game in 4 weeks? I think is the question. So there's a lot that goes into playing running back. It's not just taking the ball and running forward. There's a lot of different things as far as pass protection and being in the right spot in the passing game, et cetera. So, that's the question. And if Trayshawn Brown has been more available and has been making plays and shown some things as he did on A-Day, as he did in the scrimmage yesterday, then maybe he's one of your top 3 guys if Deere is down. But at the end of the day, like you still have Daniel Hill and Kevin Riley, and I want to just toss those guys aside. I think they are experienced players. The coaching staff trusts them. They've been at the top of the depth chart, if you will, and I think they'll remain there. So if they're healthy, then why not play them? So it probably hurts the Deere injury might hurt your top end potential of the running back room, especially if it's a long-term thing. But I still think it's Daniel Hill and Kevin Riley 1 and 2 right now. I don't really think that's changed.
Yeah. I'm a little bit less into the Kevin Riley of it all. It's just been a quiet camp for him so far, and I thought physically I'd see him develop a little bit more, and it hasn't really happened. So is he just primarily going to be a scat back speed guy, and what's the limitation there? That's sort of what lingers in my skull.
I think to your point about Kevin Riley too, and I think Alex, you brought it up in the spring after A-Day. I know he's still a freshman, and people have crowned him as, this god. Trayshawn Brown feels like he can probably do what Kevin Riley does, but better. So that point, and then also, and not looking so far into this highlight tape that's altered and this and that from the scrimmage, but is there anything to? And I don't know if you guys have heard his name talking with people, but I didn't hear much about Daniel Hill, and he's been the guy that they've praised a lot, during the fall. And then he doesn't really, again, you're not putting too much into it, but is not seen in that little recap video. I don't know, not talking about injuries or anything like that, but was that anything that kind of caught your attention, or am I looking way too far into it?
Not really. I mean, those quick cuts in those videos are not just to make them look cool. They're to hide everything. Right. No, I mean, I think Daniel's had a good camp, and if we're going to talk about Grubb not BSing, he loves Daniel Hill. He's been on the Daniel Hill bandwagon for over a year.
Before Cody was.
Yes, before. Yeah, he's ready for it, and I think he's your guy. It starts there, but I think a lot of people are they want to see it. I think they want to see it in live action. And look, that the trouble is one scrimmage, and Mike and I can rant about scrimmages later, but let's just give it a little bit of time. Let's see what he does. And that one scrimmage, the offensive line did not win the line of scrimmage, and no running back's going to look great in that circumstance, especially one like Daniel, who is primarily between the tackles kind of runner.
Yeah. I think that's perfectly put, that the offensive line did not win that scrimmage. I don't want to get you guys rolling, but I was going to ask you what you just alluded to, how much is one scrimmage? I think Mike put it to a point. It's 2/18 of the pie, if you will, of the fall. Do we look too far into it just because it's
2/18?
Isn't that what?
I'll reduce to fraction.
1/9.
Well, I did say 2/18.
I haven't had math class in a long time.
But I think he did say it, so you're not. You're it just sounded.
It's do we elevate that much more, or as the media, not saying you guys, but put a little bit too much stock into it compared to all the other practices? But I'd argue
it's live action, but they also had live action on, was it Tuesday? I mean, Kane was talking about going live and tackling. So it just happens different levels of visibility is probably the best way to put it. Different levels of all that. Look, you go back over the years, like which guys have starred in scrimmages, Kendrick Law and Trayshawn Holden, and right down the list of guys that we're talking about this time of year, and a couple weeks later weren't really on the radar quite as much. But sometimes you do have guys that, like Will Anderson, at those scrimmages in 2020, I think was making a pretty big impact, and that certainly held true years later. So I don't know. You still got 4 practices next week: Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. You have another scrimmage Thursday. How does that look different? I'm sure we'll get into the quarterback thing later, but it could be a completely different outcome during scrimmage next Thursday. And then how do you balance the 2 scrimmages? How do you balance what happened in the spring? Sometimes we're prisoners of the moment too much when it comes to what happens in a particular setting like this.
Yeah. Here's the problem with scrimmages. Somebody can run for 3 touchdowns and they could all happen in short yardage situations. Doesn't mean anything. It lacks all context, and the best information you can get, what dude is whipping the dude across from him. Okay. And it's hard to trust everybody in that stadium who's talking about that. Let's just be honest about it. Like, where some of this information comes, it's really hard to trust. Now, that's like you brought up Will Anderson. That's the perfect example. When you just say this dude cannot be stopped by anybody you put in front of him, that's when you go, oh, that's a thing we need to pay attention to. And you get a little of those vibes about Devin Tompkins. I just don't want to get carried away with it yet. And how much of it is we just don't trust the offensive line? Let's just be real. It's very hard to sift through the bullshit of a scrimmage. Let's just call it what it is.
Right. And I just reminded me, I think we were talking about Keon Keeley this time last year too.
And the year before.
And year before, probably. Yeah, it's one of those things, like we could sit in the stands like we did for A-Day. We've done it for fan days in the past. There's no more fan day anymore. And you can't, especially like when you're sitting in the stands, like you can't tell which, is the right guard beating the defensive tackle. Like unless you watch it in slow-mo on film, like or if you just lock in on one particular player, like you're not going to get a good idea of the specifics there, which is always like, it's tough. Like when people ask very specific questions, even like Kalen or Saban after a game, it's like, if they haven't watched a film, you're standing on the sideline, you're not going to know how a particular player played unless it was a very obvious play. So it's tough. It's tough. And I don't know. It's who knows? Like who knows how all this translates to an actual game setting in 3 weeks.
And again, the first scrimmage in particular, the defense always wins. It's almost always the case. So,
well, that's the other thing. It's like if the offensive line struggles, well, the defensive line must be really good, or vice versa. And it's a very chicken or the egg time of the year for that sort of thing. That's just my rant.
Yeah.
It's not even a rant.
No.
It's just how
I teed it up. I wanted you to give you a little rant.
We raise our voices.
Well, it's like Jay Lindsey scored a touchdown.
I'm tired of it.
Right. That's another good example.
Like, what was the defense? Like was it walk-ons in the secondary? Was it the third team defense? Like at the end of the day, we can talk about Jay Lindsey scoring a touchdown. That's good for him. I don't know if he's going to play a whole lot. Right. He's probably your 5th tight end right now. If you're talking about Caleb Edwards, Marshall Pritchett, Josh Ford, and even Danny Lewis, who a week ago was being talked about by Ryan Grubb in a very positive light. So Jay Lindsey could be your 5th tight end. It's great that he caught a touchdown in a scrimmage on August 13th. Does that mean on September 5th against East Carolina that we're going to see any more than 5 snaps of Jay Lindsey?
I think they should retire 88 after the scrimmage. I think they should respect him so much that they just hang it up.
I was going to bring that up later. I was going to maybe start the show, but figured we'll have some thoughts to close out when we get into the, later in the show. But we're going to get into some buy or sells. I think one more thing, and we'll let you guys go as well if you have some more thoughts before we get into that. Like the offensive line, again, struggled. I know it is, but it does seem like they're, for better or worse, seem to be getting more and more closer to finding their set 5 with Jackson Lloyd, Mal Waldrop getting the starting nod, if you will, which has been the case for the last couple weeks or week. Delgatti at center, Carroll, Jamin James. I know Kalen DeBoer was asked about Jamin James. He's good, but he's bad, but he's not that great, but he's not that
he's
bad.
He's not great, but he's not bad. And you know what? That may not be the worst thing.
Right.
Like,
And I was talking to some people.
Fine.
Yeah, just I think serviceable was brought up in a couple conversations. Like, I don't know if you guys had any thoughts about the offense line, but it does seem like they're in grind to grow. Talked about they're not going to rotate nearly as much, and that's they're trying to find their right five, which sounds obvious, but that is worth being put out. That I feel like they've got the right five, or their five best. I don't know.
I'd say it's still probably 5.5. I'm not ruling out Sanders yet, just because the Mal Waldrop thing is still so new. Right. That I think you need to see how it shakes out. And again, it's kind of like Geno Vandermark. Like, is he more valuable as a swing guy than as potentially as a starter? I think there's sort of different paths you can go down. But yeah, like, I was curious if there'd be some Nick Brooks buzz, if he'd push Jaden James. You don't hear a lot about that. So it does seem like they have 5, and they seem very intent on sticking with 5, which I think is music to a lot of Alabama fans' ears. Careful what you wish for. But yeah, it seems like that's settled for the time being, barring, injuries, whatnot.
Yeah. Anything else coming out of scrimmage? I think we'll probably talk about some of them in the buy or sells as well, but we might have lost Alex for a second.
I'm here. My camera keeps dropping out. Just ignore it when it happens.
All good, all good. So we'll just hop right into some of these, and some of them, I guess, now looking back at it, there's a couple that are redundant, and we already talked about Waldrop being ahead of schedule, according to offense coordinator Ryan Grubb. I don't know if you guys have any thoughts there. I guess we'll just.
He said he was ahead of schedule compared to what the outside expectation was. I think it's important to note. Like, I don't think he thinks Mal was not capable of these things. Which, take that for whatever it's worth. Do I buy it? Yeah, of course I do. It's we weren't thinking he was going to be a guy necessarily pushing for a starting job. And again, I think the thing I'm buying more than anything is the versatility and how that might be needed on this offensive line in particular.
And he was banged up a little bit last year, especially towards the end of the year. So it was kind of a lost freshman season in terms of getting any real playing time. And so I think because of that, it's just very much an unknown, going into this offseason. And I guess ahead of schedule is all relative, as Alex has put it. So, look, at the end of the day, if you had Tyler Booker at left guard, I don't think Mal Waldrop is starting. It's still
if he played right guard, he wouldn't be starting.
Right. It's a product of the circumstances as well. Like, you need a guard. Like, you didn't have experienced guards. You lost all of them this offseason, and you didn't really bring in experienced guards through the portal. Ethan Fields is not terribly experienced.
What if another guard enters the fold?
Right. There's still the Cam Dewberry angle, if you will, or whatever you want to call it. So, yeah, it's still like he's ahead of schedule because you kind of need him to be. Like, he's starting at left tackle because you need a starting left tackle. We don't know what the results on the field are going to look like. That there's nothing to go off of, or virtually nothing to go off of for either one of those players in an actual game setting yet. So again, it's all relative on how you interpret that, but I'll buy it. I'll buy it in the sense that I think right now, if you're making a 2-deep depth chart, I think he's your starting left guard. So that I guess puts him ahead of schedule.
I think just while we're off on the offense line as well, and you mentioned kind of the Geno Vandermark swing type of player as Mal Waldrop, that could Will Sanders also be considered in that same boat? Like, if he gets beat out by Mal, does he potentially? I don't think he's playing right tackle. There's no shot, but does he also offer that versatility to, go in at center if Delgatti has to come out for a play or whatever it may be?
I haven't heard him talked about center. I think your third center is what, like Casey Poe?
So, really for camp, it's been it hasn't been Strayhorn, who I would have expected, based on his experience playing there at Michigan. But
they don't think he's a center.
Right. So he's been more of a guard. But then Casey Poe, who really hasn't been a center. I mean, Poe has played guard and tackle since he's been in Alabama. He's been at center, but then he's been hurt. I don't know about the scrimmage yesterday with him, but Chris Booker is kind of the next guy up, the freshman. And he's light. I mean, he's 285, 290, I think now.
Yeah, he's I think he's even Yeah, he's light.
Visually, like your lightest offensive lineman, just kind of looking at him. But you can even see some photos yesterday. He was playing center. So right now, if you don't have Poe, I think your center depth chart, if you will, is Delgatti and Chris Booker. And if you had an injury to Delgatti, would you move Waldrop inside?
Right.
Yeah, it's possible. I don't know if Sanders, from what I can remember, has played that, but it's possible. He's played center in practice last year. Remember Coach Cap talking about how they had 6 or 7 guys snapping the football, being ready for that. So, maybe he's done it. I don't know. This hasn't really been on the radar as far as the question, I'd say.
Yeah. We kind of hit on it here, but buy or sell, AK Deer has come a long way, according to offense coordinator Ryan Grubb, which is what he said. And I think we already talked about it. I don't know if you guys have anything else to add, but
if you get hurt and if you're out for a while, then obviously that would put you back. So we still have to wait on the severity and the timeline with him, but that would be unfortunate, if he really came on the first week of camp and then he kind of has to work his way all the way back and becomes a conversation next year. If that is the timeline, if it's not, then even then, I mean, you have guys, like I said, Daniel Hill, Kevin Riley, Trayshawn Brown. Does Deer being out set him back within that competition as well?
Yeah. I'm more interested in buying stock in AK Deer than I was a month ago, but I do I'm going to get in the weeds. I'd have a target price because I need to know the injury status here. So I'd put in some sort of alert that told me, okay, now it's a good time to buy him. Just because you have to figure out what the severity of the injury is. But look, they need pop. Like that's the bottom line at running back. Because Daniel Hill will give you physicality. They're hoping they get more explosive plays out of him after dropping some weight, but you need explosive playmakers, and AK Deer can give you some of that. The question is, how will that ultimately, I think, relate to question 6 and Trayshawn Brown and obviously EJ Crowell? But yeah, I'd still buy stock in AK Deer right now. You're still buying low.
Yeah, that's a good point as well. Buy or sell, Luke Metz, quote, playing at a very high level, according to defense coordinator Kane Womack. This is something that I think I've talked to you guys with, in the group chat and, put on the board as well. That's something I was hearing, for a little bit the last couple of weeks. And then coming off the scrimmage, there wasn't a conversation I had that didn't mention Luke Metz. And then Alex and I were also talking about it off camera before we got rolling. I think the other guy that continues to be brought up and has for a while is QB Reese, who is listed at 6'2", 210. So is he shorter than that? And then Luke Metz is 6'3", 235, I believe it is. So just objectively a bigger player. I think, I continue to hear his instincts, is able to kind of cover sideline to sideline, get, all 3 levels of the defense and even rush the passer in some points and kind of blow up the running back on pass plays. I'm buying that completely. The other side of it is there's going to be a lot of rotation regardless of who is taking that day. That's snap number 1 against East Carolina. But Alex, Mike, go ahead.
I would hold my nose and buy, because I think buying this is an indictment of the inside linebacker room. If I'm just going to be it's my very cynical take. Maybe a lot of them are, according to some of the people who listen to this podcast. But
thank you for listening.
It's not good that Luke Metz is pushing to be a starter compared to QB Reese and Caden Jones, because those were their 2 guys. Those were the guys who they were ready to roll with last season if they had to. Those are the guys they felt even better about because they got extra time to develop them. And where are they? Ultimately, you're hearing about one guy because you're not hearing about the other. And, it's not a knock on Luke, but it with his inexperience, it's just a little bit troubling to me that he's able to make a push and those other guys are not. So I buy it, but I don't feel good about buying it if I'm Alabama.
Would you put QB and Caden, I guess, in different categories, or do you kind of put them in the ever since Caden came on, I just don't feel like there was as much buzz, and you guys may feel differently compared to a QB Reese, but just based off your thoughts there, I don't know if I could argue they're maybe in different categories. But again, I agree with everything you said. Again, it's not an indictment on Luke as well. But Mike, go ahead.
I'll buy it. At the end of the day, if you're telling me that they played a different linebacker combination, or they switched their linebacker combination on every single defensive series of these Carolina game, I would buy that. Like, I think we're going to see boom, 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 just complete rotation through that position through these Carolina game. I don't even think that means Caleb Woodson plays every series. I think we see Reese. I think we see Metz. I think we see Caden Jones. I think we see Abdul Sanders.
Just not EJ Griffin. Not EJ.
Xavier
Griffin. Maybe we'll see some of him. Like, I think it's just continued rotation and maybe even more aggressive rotation than what they've had the last couple of years when they've had experienced players at that position in the system. So I don't know. It's like the absolute I'll buy it, but at the same time, I think like hold is really where I'm at on that. Like, check back with me in like a month, and maybe Kane will start to pare down that rotation.
God dang, you're buying stock. You're not buying things that already happened.
Well, I'm only a finance major, so the one thing I learned about finance is you make it up as you go along. It's an interesting world, but it's. I don't know. I don't think it's going to be decided. It's not like you have two starting linebackers, and those are the only guys you're going to play. You're going to play 4, if not 5 guys. And so we'll see how that all shakes out as the season goes along. Yeah. Sorry, my eyes just kind of glaze over. We talk about the inside linebackers. It's like, I don't know. We'll see. Like, it's one of those things, like, not even a month from now. Check back in like 2 or 3 months. Like, where are we going to be in October, November with that room? Because right now it's just – you're just gonna see what works.
All right,
it's very, very fair. Number 4, buy or sell. There is still zero separation between Austin Mack and Keelan Russell. I was trying to think of creative ways to talk about the quarterback. So, but
no, it's fair.
Mike will let you go first on this one.
No, I got asked this on the radio this morning. Like, is Kalen DeBoer being truthful about that, or does he have some secret starter already named or known to him? Right,
shadow president.
Right, like. I think it's much more of the former. I think he truly has a decision on his hands to make, and he's just being honest with kind of where it's at. And again, I think what he's saying doesn't necessarily align with what people are thinking or hearing, if you will, because I feel like the Keelan Russell conversation only continues to intensify. That, like, this is Keelan's job. There's, he's got to be the starter, et cetera, et cetera. I still think it's a difficult choice, and you may not even have separation a week from now when you go through, like I said, the 4 practices next week in the second scrimmage. Like, you may just have to sit down in that deliberation room with Kalen and Grubb and maybe Brian Ellis and just figure out what's going to be the best path for this offense. And there's certainly arguments to be made that Keelan Russell provides more playmaking ability, more talent, more ceiling, higher ceiling, all that. Better with his legs, better if the pocket breaks down because your offensive line may not be that good. Can make things happen as a runner if your running game's not that good. But I also think that there's legitimate things that Austin Mack may have going his way as well, if we're talking about poise and all that. So we'll get into it with the number 7. But I still don't know if naming the starter for the East Carolina game is naming your starting quarterback for the 2026 season. I think there still could be a difference there.
So I'm just imagining, and this is not a stretch, the scrimmage ends at 135, 140, whatever it was. Everybody rushing back to their secured cell phones because they're not allowed to take them to their seats, and trying to remember what they're going to tell all their friends / some people in the media hitting them up for information. They're going to remember Keelan more because Keelan does things that you go, holy crap, because he's elusive. He's got pop. That doesn't negate what Austin does. Like, it doesn't negate somebody who understands the offense, executes the offense, and takes care of the football. And if you feel great about your defense, don't you want those things? It's one scrimmage too. It's one scrimmage out of what? How many practices are we into this thing? 10?
That was number 8.
8? Yeah. Look, I mean, 1/8, and everything here from those previous practices is consistency. Execution goes to Austin. That's worth something. So I don't know, zero separation. I think it changes. I think there's not enough separation is how I would put it. So, I'm not ruling out either quarterback. I just think people want to rush to name Keelan the quarterback because they get excited about the talent. And as I wrote about earlier this week, talent isn't everything. I think we saw it play out a bunch of different times. Potential isn't everything at quarterback. We saw it play out a bunch of different times with Nick Saban as the head coach. So let it play out. And I think it could play out into the season, whether they name a starter or not, but we'll get to that in 7.
Yeah. We'll just keep it right there. We'll jump to 7 just to keep it on the quarterback competition, that Kalen DeBoer is not close to naming a starting quarterback. And I wrote that statement because he was asked about that kind of point blank in his presser, and he said he's not. Before I let you guys go, can 2 things be true? Once, like, he's not close to naming a starter, but like if they had a game tomorrow, he would know who he's starting.
Yeah, I think he's close. I just don't think he's ready to do it. I think he probably knows who it's going to be, but I think he wants to see that second scrimmage because, again, there's not enough separation. I think you want to see, let's assume that Keelan did blow Austin out of the water yesterday. You want to see it again because he's a young guy. Like, do it twice. Make me make that decision if I'm leaning toward Austin Mack. So, I mean, he's probably like a week away from naming it, like a week and a half. That's close in my mind. But I think you're right. I think 2 things can be true. I think he can be close, but I think he can still be a little unsure of it. And on something like that, what they want to do is almost will it to fruition. Like, we believe in this guy. We're going to hand him the reins. We don't want to change again. So, like, it's almost like you're trying to instill that confidence in that quarterback. So, yeah, you're probably, it's a little bit of both. So I don't know if it's a buy or sell or a hold or whatever it is, but it's kind of how I look at it. And again, I think to Mike's point, like, you're going to instill that confidence and carry that starter through to game 1. But after that first series, all bets are off. Like, it will be who performs the best when they're out there.
Mm-hmm. Right. I'll sell that they're not close to naming a starting quarterback. I think they are close to naming one. But when you say name a starting quarterback, that means the East Carolina game. And so I think the timeline that Kalen's talked about, I'm sure, is still the one that he wants to stick to, that after the second scrimmage, you want to have clarity for your players, for your locker room, on who's going to be your starter going into the preparations for East Carolina, which will be those 2 weeks of practices after. But if that starter goes out and doesn't play well against East Carolina, then what does the locker room want after that? What's your best move to go and make whoever it is to make their first start on the road in the SEC a week later? So if you're talking about a starting quarterback, to me, the milepost for that is really who starts at Kentucky. Because I think there's a good chance we're going to see both of them against East Carolina, whether it's rotating series or, there's a change in the second quarter or whatever, the case may be. Probably going to see both. And I think people can all make a final evaluation, if you want to call it that, based on that. Then I think you really need to have a guy going to Kentucky. Like, you can't be flip-flopping quarterbacks on the road, especially if the game does not go your way, or if the crowd starts to get into it, et cetera. So I think that's when you kind of need to know. But even then, let's say it doesn't perform well. Does that mean you can't make another change when you're playing Florida State at home, or see both of them again? Or, if you're playing South Carolina or Mississippi State, can you have a different guy? Like, there's no rule against that. Like, I don't think it's the ideal scenario, but if there truly isn't separation, I feel like both guys have some capabilities and strong points, then I don't think it's the worst thing in the world to kind of play both either. So, yeah, we'll continue to see where it goes. I'll sell that they're not close. I think they are close, but what a starting QB actually means is kind of up for interpretation.
Yeah, it's starting quarterback for week 1 versus East Carolina. It's that full sentence. It's nothing more. It's nothing less.
Right.
Yeah. I'm going to let Alex lead the way on this one, and then Mike, I'm going to give you the next one. But Fire South Alabama defense will play more man coverage, according to Dijon Lee. I know Alex had a story out. I think Kane Womack mentioned it as well, talking with Nick Saban in the offseason about that. I know Alex has ran a lot of the numbers, so I'll get Alex to go first here to share his thoughts.
Buy, because there's only room to go up because they didn't play a ton of it. I mean, sell that they should. I don't understand. You're really, really good at playing zone. You're not good at all by the numbers for playing man. And there's this mindset that if you're talented, therefore talent equals playing press man, and not talented equals zone. That's not true.
Right.
Like, if it's working, why would you mess with it? And I understand, like, you want to play more press man because it can help if you got a more effective front seven rushing passer. Like, I get that. I don't know. Like, I need to see that Xavier Brown and Dijon Lee are really good in playing man, because the last time I saw them play man, they got torched by India. Like, let's see it. I think they're built to play zone. So, like, what is more? Like, that's the other part. Like, do you play more man when you're playing in red zone situations? Like, on third down? Like, I don't know. There's an argument to be made. Like, Nick Saban's not a dummy. Like, he knows more about playing the secondary than anybody's ever known, but he knows one way. And he's gonna lean toward his way of doing it. And it's right that Kane would hear him out. It's right that if he thinks there are certain instances to do it, he should do it. When the numbers are as huge of a gap as they are, I just don't understand, like, square peg round hole here. Like, it doesn't make sense to me.
Yeah, I mean, I think Kane did and said everything right. Like, you obviously you have to listen to Nick Saban. You have to say that he made good points. I'm not saying he's disingenuous, but, like, Kane can't go up there and be like, yeah, Nick Saban doesn't know what the hell he's talking about. Like, I'm just going to do my own thing. Like, so obviously, like, yes, like, I think you kind of have to process that. At the end of the day, coaches run their systems. Like, they believe in their systems. I brought up the analogy on the radio this morning. Like, on one end of the spectrum in basketball, you have Nate Oates running super fast and shooting threes and doing all that. The other end of the spectrum, we have Randy Bennett, who was at St. Mary's and now at Arizona State. They're slow. They throw it down to the post. They run two completely different systems. They both won a ton of games. Right. Like, there's no one right way of doing it. It's how well do you execute your scheme? How do you get the right players into that scheme? And how do you understand the players that you have who may not totally fit it and adjust accordingly? So that was kind of what Kane was getting at Tuesday. He's like, didn't really feel like we had the right players last year to totally run, more the press man stuff. And part of that might be the defensive line, like, to be able to get a pass rush and all that too. So, like, I think at the end of the day, it's not so much right or wrong between zone or man. It's if there's something that can be applied from Saban's message, it's mix it up. Mm-hmm. Have more variation and try to confuse some of these quarterbacks, especially if you have experienced secondary players that you feel like can switch on the fly. I think Bray Hubbard and Xavier Brown, like, they know what they're doing out there, and you can put them in a pattern match on one play and then switch back to something else in the next play. And you don't have to worry about the mental part of the game with them, or Keon Seb as well. Now, if you're rotating 27 different defensive backs into the game, that might be a little bit of a different story. You might have to run more of what you taught them and they know best, which might be more of the zone concept. So I don't know, like, this discussion has gone on for weeks now, and it's one of those that, like, people really have just chewed into it, bitten into it. But will we be talking about it, a month from now? I don't know. Like, look at the quarterbacks that they start against. Like, I think the secondary is going to look really good the first month of the season, maybe up until, we'll see what the North Sellers does. But, like, I think you're going to be fine either way, to be honest.
And I'll just reiterate, like, the team that won the national championship, the team that everybody's trying to emulate, they played more zone than anybody last year. They killed Alabama. They played more zone than anybody. Georgia plays a lot of zone too. Like Georgia's middle of the pack in terms of playing man, 70 something in the FBS. It's not like they're just ripped out there and being Superman and playing man all the time. Like that makes it up. I think there's a balance, but I think you have to go with what you're good at, and time will tell. I think Kane will test those waters, and to Mike's point, maybe the first few weeks won't be necessarily as indicative as they need to be, but we'll see.
Yeah, you brought up the rotation part and the Bray Hubbard. Maybe there's some Bray Hubbard linebacker, and just wanted to put that out there again to shout out Alex for caught some flack, I think, for potentially for saying maybe some Bray Hubbard linebacker opportunities in this fall. I think during the summer or spring you mentioned that, so it's something to keep an eye on as well. Number 6, I want to give this to Mike, and I was trying to look it up. I couldn't find it. The exact date you sent kind of a text about. Oh, do you have it? The date?
Oh yeah, because you found it and reminded us. Because
twice, in fact.
Like Lane Kiffin, when you do something right, you need to tell people.
Where April 2nd. April 2nd.
Okay, so that was the
4 months ago. It was
towards before 8A.
Towards the end of spring.
Before 8A.
Yeah. So I say that because, as Mike just said and has reminded us, he had mentioned something similar to the fact that there could be potential of more Trayshawn Brown hype and then E.J. Crowell, the 5-star freshman, where you're talking about the 2 freshmen running backs.
What if he plays more this season?
That's what it was. Yeah. So buy or sell the Trayshawn Brown hype, Mike.
Yeah, I think you really have to buy it now. If there is a situation where you're without Deere for a period of time, extended or otherwise, and you already had questions about the running back room, the whole Hollywood Smothers thing, and there's opportunities to be had in the room, let's say. And if you have a guy like Trayshawn Brown that has been available, has been making plays for you, who cares if he was a 3-star? Like, go and play him. And that doesn't mean he's a starter. That doesn't mean he's even one of your top 2 guys. But I think right now he has a decent chance to be one of your top 3. And that's football. Like, it's always covering the NFL. It's like, it doesn't matter if you're a 7th-round pick or a 1st-round pick. You go into camp and you look the part. Doesn't matter at that point. Like, what round you're picked in doesn't matter how many stars are on your name. And availability is the best ability. So that's kind of what's working against E.J. Crowell right now. And that's probably what's helping Trayshawn Brown. If that could change in an instant. Trayshawn Brown goes out and twists his ankle in practice on Sunday, then everything kind of changes again. But for right now, I mean, I'll buy the hype. That doesn't mean all the hype. I'll buy some of the hype. Because see, like the Josh Jacobs comparisons, it's like let's slow down. Let's slow down with the Josh Jacobs. Like that's a high-level NFL running back. We're talking about a freshman who's been here for 8 months. So let's calm down with that hype. But in terms of whether he can play and whether he may even play more out of the gate than E.J. Crowell, I'll buy that.
I would cheat and say hold. I would not buy or sell. I'd hold only because the hype is too high. I think the price is too high right now.
The rent is too damn high.
Yeah, the price is too damn high. The rent is too damn high. I think people are just a little over their skis when you start talking about like Josh Jacobs and everything this guy can be because it's too early. And look, yeah, you're right. It doesn't matter at a certain point when you get into camp as 3-star, but you need to see it over and over again. You need to see it a few more times than you do when you see a 5-star because it's confirmation bias. It's the opposite of that with a guy like Trayshawn. So do I buy that he can have an impact on the running back room? Absolutely. Am I ready to buy the hype? It's too pricey for me right now.
Yeah. We already hit on Kalen
now,
Moore. Go ahead.
Would you short, Mike, a finance major, would you short the E.J. Crowell stock right now?
Yeah. Because it's the same thing I talked about in the last show. Like, where you are at running back in week 1, it can be a lot different than where you are week 12.
Mm-hmm.
If EJ Crowell gets healthy and gets on the field and shows his ability, then it could be a much different story by November or October. So, yeah, but there's just.
If I'm holding EJ Crowell stock, I'm not selling it yet.
Right.
If I can short it right now and check back in 6 weeks, I might do that.
Right. I agree.
Just because it's the longer he's away, the more the hope gets pushed back to when he becomes the guy.
No doubt. We'll skip over number 7, talking about Kale on the board, not close to naming sorry because we hit on that. Last one for you. I tried to incorporate a little bit of the who weren't playing in the scrimmage. So buy or sell, Latsir Brooks not playing in the scrimmage is more noteworthy than EJ Crowell not playing. I know we've kind of hit on both for a little bit at different times of this podcast. I'm not loving the wording of this, actually, looking back at it.
Just making sure. So I'm buying. No. See, it's confusing me.
I guess
I'm selling the idea that Latsir Brooks not playing is more important than EJ Crowell not playing. I think EJ Crowell not playing is more important than Latsir Brooks not playing.
That essentially, I was like, what's the bigger?
Yeah, because
out.
Do I think Latsir Brooks is a finished product? No. I've expressed a little bit of skepticism in terms of what does year 2 look like when the only 2 times you found the end zone were in the playoff. Do I think he's a really talented player, though? Yeah. Am I confident in him being a second or third wide receiver? Absolutely. I still maintain that the best path for Alabama to be a really good football team is for EJ Crowell to be their starting running back and succeeding. And the longer he's out, the less likely that looks. So that's kind of how I look at it.
Yeah, I agree. I'll sell, I think. If Brooks is back in a week or 2 and starts week 1, then we're probably not going to be talking about it. But I think all this practice time cumulatively that EJ has missed is a problem for a freshman coming into an offense, any offense.
I got a bonus buy or sell.
Let's do it.
Because it feels like the biggest bet. Kalen said something in the press conference. It feels like the biggest bet that Alabama is making when he talked about the offensive line struggling because the defensive line was so good. And he added to that, I think most teams are going to struggle against this defensive line. Do you buy that? Is that enough for you to pin your hopes on? Because it's assuming quite a bit. It's assuming that your offensive line is better than they've looked. And it's assuming that every evaluation you've made on that defensive line with those transfers, some of which had success elsewhere, some of which did not, are going to all pan out. That feels like the big bet on, in some ways, this whole football team.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know if I have an answer to that yet.
I guess the answer is probably hold, right? It's a cop out, but Mike, go ahead. I don't know if you had any. It's a fair assumption, and reading between the lines there on his was a good catch, Alex, about how everybody's going to struggle against this defensive line. It was something that I continue to hear about, but again, is that an indictment on who they're going against?
So that wasn't 6-7. It was like, if you're watching, it's the hardest thing to evaluate when you're talking about practice or a scrimmage is that person struggling because the other person's so good, or is that person struggling because they're not that good?
Right.
I mean, we'll see. We're officially to the point in the calendar where it's like, honestly, I'm sick of talking about this stuff because, I guess it's my job, but I don't fucking know.
It is your job.
We'll see.
No, it's fair.
We've been talking about this for 9 months. Can we just get to September 5th and just see what it looks like? Because
Mike wants to go into hibernation for 3 weeks.
It just last year, how much did we talk about X, Y, Z, left, right, up, down? They go down to Florida State, they get spanked. It was nothing of what we thought it was going to be all throughout the month of August. It's not what we talked about. It looked nothing like it. And then they looked a lot better when they went to Athens a couple of weeks later, and they looked nothing like they were at Florida State. So I don't know. I guess we can fill the time and talk about it right now, but
are you asking people not to watch this podcast?
My rant 50 minutes into the show is
why are you here?
Holy crap! Let's play the game, please. I'm just
we're
this.
I disagree in the sense that there is less known about this football team than any team Mike, you or I have covered.
Yeah, it's true.
There's more up for grabs. And this is the point where people grab it. Now, will it pan out in the season? Maybe not, but like it has to happen at some point. So like I think like big picture, how good is this team is really hard to get a handle on, but like those position battles and stuff like that really are important as I go blank.
No, I think it's a legitimate question that you brought up as far as will the defensive line look that good every week? I think, and it could be an individual basis thing too. Like might Devin Tompkins look that good every week? Quite possibly. Will Kedrick Bingley-Jones? Will London Simmons? Will Edric Hill? I asked Kane about that the other day, about the bandit position. Like, are you going to play Devin Tompkins every down at bandit? Probably not. So, like, who else is playing bandit? Like last year, it was Jordan Renaud who was in there. They rotated in, and it was Keon Keeley. So the names he mentioned were like Edric Hill and Fatutoa Henry. How different does your defensive line look when it's Edric Hill and Isaiah Fega and Jeremiah Beeman in there instead of Devin Tompkins and Terrence Green? And like, it's going to look different on a play-to-play, series-to-series basis. So that's...
You forgot Steve
Mbumua. There's... Who else am I missing in that group? London Simmons. Like,
yep.
So who's in there? Like, is Desmond Umazulu playing on the edge? The bandit? Is Jamari Latham playing? Like, it's not a static thing like we can just talk about individually. Like it could look different play to play, series to series, game to game, which I'm sorry is not a nice and clean answer, but that's just how I feel about it.
It's fair.
Mike doesn't buy stocks when they come out as an IPO. He wants to see 10 years. He's just now interested in the Walt Disney Company. He wasn't sure for decades. Now he's seen some movies come out. He really liked Moana. So he's like, all right, now I'm ready to go in.
Close on Apple.
Paramount Skydance stock.
You buying Indiana yet, Mike?
I'm not an AP voter. I don't know where I'd put Indiana. I see what you're asking now. You're asking about Indiana. No, was I not the one who sat on this show last year before the Rose Bowl? Was like, watch out for Indiana.
Yeah,
like they do a lot of things well. They don't turn the football over. They don't commit penalties. They don't give up big plays, and that absolutely held true. So
it's crazy. It's crazy that anyone ranked 1 to about 18 I can see win a national championship.
Yeah,
like anybody. Like Texas Tech is not going to start the season inside the top 10.
Would that include Alabama, though?
Yeah.
Because one AP voter, Brett McMurphy, put out his AP ballot a couple days ago, and he had Alabama at 20. So
yeah, Brett writes and tweets a lot of things.
That would not be the top 18.
Yeah. But they're going to be, they are, in fact,
I do think they'll be top 18 in the AP poll, which comes out on Monday. Yeah. But I don't know if they're going to be as high as they were in a coach's poll, which was 11.
That does feel.
I have a feeling Alabama is more likely to be in the 13 range, is kind of my gut feeling on the AP poll.
Yeah. 50 plus minutes into this podcast. We'll wrap it up in a second. Do want to, I don't want to get too far into it, but if Alabama adopts the Jaden Daniels way of thinking, are we seeing triple-digit jerseys at Alabama like this year? And just how ridiculous for those that haven't seen it.
Well, you only have 3 Heisman winners. Only. That's stupid to say. Like nothing should be retired jersey-wise in college. The only thing that's retired at Alabama, no coach should ever wear a straw hat. There. That's the only article of clothing that should not be worn by anybody.
What about a houndstooth hat? What if Kalen DeBoer came out the first week of the season wearing a houndstooth hat?
What will Kalen wear?
What about? I was going to say
black hoodie when it's 98 degrees.
He was joking about that the other day. Mm-hmm. Maybe he will. I don't know. I feel like that's.
Isn't it called the black hoodie of death? Isn't that what people were calling it?
You if it's 98 degrees outside.
Oh no, just
be his death shroud.
Yeah, that whole Jaden Daniels thing just cracked me up. But then it also led me to like the Yankees, where they bring up a guy and he's number like 96 because they have so many guys retired.
I do think an honorary sort of giving of a number is really cool. Like LSU with number 7, I think is really
cool
how they value that. I do think that would be something a place like Alabama could emulate. Like, again, 2, 6, 22. Like, give those guys, you should have to earn it in a way. Like, that's the only part that really rubs me the wrong way. I don't have sympathy for Jaden Daniels' camp's argument, but like, why in the hell should a true freshman be getting that number? I don't care if you were a 6-star athlete, you don't get that number. Like, you've got to earn it. Is my sort of way of thinking, because that number does hold a prestige in that program that I think should be honored. Does it mean it's off limits? No. But it means you should have to do something to get it other than sign your NIL paperwork, because they're already giving you $1 million. You don't get the freaking number on top of it.
Well, I think in that particular I think that NIL statement that he signed, one of the bullet points was that I'm getting number 5.
Yeah,
I think
it should
they
be
talked about it, which is
1
crazy.
million, a bunch of zeros, and then 5 at the end. That's the 5 you get right there, and be happy with it.
5 cents.
Yeah.
$5.
I think we'll have to go to fractions on our jerseys.
Yeah.
If we're running out of numbers into the 2 digits, if you will, you can do 2 18ths, reduce it down to 1/9.
There we go. There we go.
I think Alabama should retire 2 and 26. Just pick random things. 4 and 31. They got to respect it. That nobody can use LANK in any sort of full name. I don't know. It's just
reunited in Seattle.
They are
pending the courts.
The Lake CEOs of the Lake Foundation. Returning. Loaded show as always. Nearing an hour, so we're going to close it out. No practice today, no practice Saturday. Back on the field Sunday. I don't think there's any media availability. Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, heading into the second scrimmage. We'll hear from Ryan Grubb on Monday. We'll hear from Kane Womack on Tuesday. Bunch of players Wednesday, and then Coach Labor and Bryant-Denny on Thursday. So stay locked in for continued coverage. Again, we're running a promo, 60% off full year. So join us, and you can find this on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, over at Bama247. Thank you guys, and have a good weekend.